Hey everyone, Dr. Frunkey here with a really awesome knife consult for you. In front of us is the North Arm Knives Skaha. This comes to us by way of my good buddy Josh. He goes by Echo Does Knives on Instagram and YouTube, and he's one of the co-hosts of our new podcast, Knifecast, that you can find on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and on YouTube. Just look for Knifecast. In any case, thanks Josh for sending this along. I've been excited to try one of these knives out because this is a very unique knife from a very interesting company. And the knife was recently popularized by my good buddy Nick Shabazz from one of his videos. He raved about this knife, and I think it'll be interesting for me to take a look at it and to draw some interesting comparisons and conclusions. So, what are we looking at here? This is the North Arm Knives Skaha. This is brought to us by knife makers John and Michael Goodmanson. They are a father and son team out of British Columbia, and they make this entire knife from beginning to end. This has a 3.25-inch cutting length of S35 VN. You're looking at about 3.5 inches of overall blade length, a little less than 4 inches to the pivot, and about 7 3/4 inches in overall length. So it's a very nice EDC size. I'm going to bring out another couple of EDC knives for size comparison, and this is something fun that I hope to add to the channel now that I have both of these knives in my possession. This is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2 and Para 3. These knives are a larger and smaller version of each other, and I think will make for some nice size comparisons. But as you can see, the Skaha fits right in between these two knives in terms of its overall size profile. If I put them all butt to butt like this, you can see the overall length differences. So it's quite a nice overall EDC size. Now, there is one other knife that I want to bring out, not for a size comparison, but rather for an overall comparison, and this is a unique thing to compare this knife to, the Grimsmo Knives Norseman. The Norseman is a very high-end custom knife known for its high CNC tolerances and perfect machining. The Grimsmos have been evolving this knife over time, and it's world-renowned for its very, very smooth action, and this knife is absolutely no exception. This thing bounces off of its detent ball. It's unbelievable. But there are some other very interesting similarities going on here. Number one, the blades on these knives. If you take a look at the Skaha here, you can see that the blade has these interesting lines going on, these horizontal lines. That's because they take their sheet of S35V in steel, put it on a Tormach CNC machine, and it mills out these blades. They take it over to the polishing wheel, they heat treat it in-house to 60 Rockwell, and then they sharpen it and put it on the knife. So it's all done in-house, and just like some other high-end knives, those CNC lines they leave on there is almost an artistic expression. The only other knives I've ever seen like that were a few Brian Ty knives, as well as the Grimsmo Norseman. Now the Grimsmos moved away from doing this on their Rask model, even though they use the same technology to cut the blades out of the steel here. So it's very interesting to me that this $925 knife, as well as some Brian Ty knives that cost, $900 to $1,200 to plus cash, have these unique features, have this CNC blade, but this knife, this Skaha that comes in at about $180, maybe less than $200 certainly, has that appearance and that technology going on the blade as well. So that's very, very cool. Moreover, this runs on a ball bearing pivot and has a very unique detent. If you look inside here, the detent ball is flattened. I'm not sure if that's going to come through on the camera. I really hope so. But the detent ball has had the very tip of it shaved off. And the only other person I know doing that are the Grimsmo brothers as well. Perhaps I can show that maybe right there, that the detent ball is also shaved off. From the top of it is shaved off. So what it does is it provides the full diameter of the ball bearing. I didn't mean to make that hand signal anyways. It has the full thickness of the ball bearing at the base, so it holds the knife in place, but then there's a flat part on the ball bearing so that the knife deploys quite smoothly, and then it falls back down very smoothly. So the Skaha also has an incredibly smooth action for that reason. Most of the resistance when you're opening and closing a knife comes from that ball bearing right there, and to have it shaved flat provides a very unique feel, and it's incredibly smooth. Now the Skaha has a much lighter blade, so it's not going to drop shut quite as freely as the Norseman, but the detent crispness is certainly similar and the smoothness is absolutely there. So very, very cool to see those evolutions on such a relatively inexpensive knife. So let's break this one down anatomically. We talked a little bit about that 3.5-inch blade with a 3.25-inch cutting length of S35 VN with that unique milling, but this is done in a nice drop point blade shape. It's extremely functional. The blade stock is coming in at only 0.1 inches right there, so I'll go ahead and bring out my calipers for a size reference right here. It comes in at, when I do this the right way, it comes in at exactly 0.1 inches. And then the handle thickness is coming in at just over 0.61 inches at the widest part right there. So it's very interesting to me. They've made a knife that is ideally designed for use. A very thin blade stock with a very nice drop point blade shape, very thin overall grind, a full flat grind, and a nice edge on it. This thing slices beautifully. This came as sharp as anything else I've ever purchased from a factory, and it's just quite nice for use. It slices beautifully. It goes through anything, food prep, you know, boxes, tape, paper, whatever you're going to use this for, it's going to handle it beautifully. And an S35 VN, I know that I can trust it. It's going to hold an edge. It's going to do very well, and their internal heat treat and their own, you know, production of the blade means that it's going to be quite nice. So I'm really, really happy about that. Moving back to the pivot, it runs on a ball bearing system, and it's just very smooth. It's just quite impressive how smooth it is. There are only a couple of other knives that really remind me about this smoothness. That's the Norseman over there and a few other customs. The Detent reminds me of the Gavco CKF spinner collaboration and the Les Voorhees 112 in terms of its crispness. No other knives that I've really handled feel quite like that. Obviously, it's a flipper-only deployment, and it's very easy to do. As soon as you overcome that detent, it's pretty much impossible to not fire this knife. I really don't think there's any way to sort of limp wrist this knife and not get it to open. Once you overcome it, it opens right up. Moving back to the handles right here, we've got these very nicely milled slabs of G10. This one is done in that safety orange color. They also offer it in black, blue, purple, jade, and various other colors of G10. Now, they've done a few runs of these. They're about to do a new run with a new update, and they just kind of choose whatever G10s they have laying around or they have been able to purchase recently. This one was done in the orange G10. What they have done is a nice contouring in all the different directions. If you can see, there's actually a wave here in this plane, and then it just gets wider over here. It's hard for me to explain, but if you can imagine, the handle swell just fits beautifully into the hand, and it's very, very comfortable, save for a couple of small issues that I'm going to talk about. It has a spring pocket clip right here that works fairly well. That's one of my complaints about the knife. So what are the things that I don't really like about this knife? Well, number one, the flipper tab, in the way that it's oriented, kind of digs into the finger. When you put your index finger there, you get your thumb on the jimping right here, and then you feel your index finger digging into the jimping on this side. There's pretty aggressive jimping on that flipper tab, and it's rounded and protruding into the area where your index finger is going to sit. And so while it does provide a very positive traction point, it's also a bit uncomfortable. I imagine if I was doing any type of prolonged cutting, that this would become very uncomfortable without gloves on. So that's a minor thing. Another minor thing is the way that this little finger groove is milled out into the G10. While I see that it works quite well for disengaging the knife, in terms of comfort, my index finger wraps around and kind of sits right on that corner right there. So if this were milled sort of back here a little bit more, I think that it would be even more comfortable and quite nice, in addition to getting rid of that right there. The other thing that I don't particularly like about this knife is the pocket clip. The pocket clip has it's very, very tight. It has a lot of tension on it. The pocket clip actually provides a bit of a hot spot when you're holding the knife. That little sharp point, actually, you can feel it in your hand. So another little ergonomic knock. Also, it doesn't have a lot of height to it, and the way that the handles are contoured on this side of the clip, there's almost no clearance for anything to fit underneath it, and so it's not very good. What they've done is actually they've moved to a spring wire clip like on Spyderco's. Actually, I have a Spyderco Pitts that has that exact clip, and this is going to look like that. So that's going to probably remedy that issue. In any case, this is a very compelling knife with a lot of technology packed into a $180 package from a unique company. What do you guys think of the knife? Leave a comment down below. Click like and subscribe to my channel here. Follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunkey, and take care.